to my friends on the show, if you're listening, you need to show up with some accountability and apologies also. We are gonna meet halfway. Well, I'll come 60% of the way, but they're gonna come 40.
My first question for you really is just what this experience has been like so far. We're about halfway through the season of Salt Lake City, which everyone online is talking about just how thrilling it is. But for you personally, like this is your first time watching yourself on TV like this. Where's your head at?
It's been so much fun. I absolutely love it. The whole experience has been amazing. Obviously, you see me have some real ups and downs on camera. It's tricky to watch friendships, evolve over time and then rewatch it later, months later when that's had some time to settle. It's still hard to rewatch. And I'm also learning a ton about myself. I had no idea how much I used my bob to articulate my arguments with people until I watched myself on camera. It's so embarrassing. But it's also really fun. It's like a crash course in who maybe I want to evolve from. Yeah.
No, I always think with these things, it's got to be so interesting to watch yourself, like in these situations, and to learn from that. But also, we love an animated bob. I feel like that tells a story.
You definitely should love me because my bob is all over the place this season.
Yes, and I think too, what's been so interesting, especially with you on the show, is that you had an organic friendship and organic connections, especially with Lisa.
Yeah.
And I know that that's definitely kind of a roller coaster relationship. But talk to me about that too, in terms of maybe relationships that you have before there are cameras in front, and then like how that changes the dynamic with any relationship.
It does, and I think that's an interesting topic this whole season, maybe even inadvertently. As I watch it back, I realize much more than when we were filming it, that there's a lot of discussion, maybe not even out in the open, just as a subtext of like, what is a good friend to each of us individually, and how do we show friendship versus how do we receive it? And I think it's really interesting for me, as I watch it back, I always wanna make sure that I'm being the kind of friend that I would want. But sometimes that's not the same kind of friend that Lisa would want, or Angie, and sometimes as your friendships evolve, you need more and less from people in different moments. And I think this is a season that anybody watching can really relate to in terms of how you interact with other people and what you need from people.
I always say I feel like it's like a superpower of a Real Housewife, I think, is to have a pretty good recall of what you said, right? Because those flashbacks, we know that those always come in handy. And I do have to give it to you too, though, especially with how the season is playing out so far. You've been able to really specifically remember when and how you said things, which in a game of telephone that we see all the time in Housewives is really important. So talk to me too about watching this. It's of course with Lisa, but even with the information with Heather, and how it is to kind of see how sometimes your words can be relayed in a different tone, a different manner than how you said it.
I am really living that right now. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching a TV show too, not the experience I lived, because the way that my words get repeated sometimes does not feel like the way I said them. So I think it is a benefit to me that I'm pretty good at recalling what happened. And I'm also really willing to admit when I'm wrong. And I think that's important in a friendship. So if I said it in a way that was offensive or didn't come across right, I'll take ownership of that. But I am kind of living for the shady twisting of the words that I see happening. Like, if I was anyone else, I'd be like, yes. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story, Heather and Lisa. Okay, sure, yeah.
I mean, listen, as an audience member, we love, like, I like that you can respect the housewifery, but also these are your words that are being twisted.
I mean, we need to get clear about what I actually said. I've been saying from the ropes course, words matter. And I think this is a pretty good illustration of why they matter. The sentiment behind my words is definitely being taken to a new level for me.
And I mean, I think this also, especially with this show, it's such a tight group. You know, there's like this core four, as we would say, who's been there, and even Mary has been there from the beginning. And it's kind of hard to break into, we've seen historically. So I kind of want to ask too, like, who right now in the cast where it stands, who would you say that you are closest to, and then who are you least close to?
Yeah, so I talk a lot with Angie and Whitney and Mary, which is not who I went into the season. Those were the three I knew the least. I knew Lisa very well. Meredith and I had done a lot socially together in Park City when I lived up in Park City, and I knew of Heather through mutual friends. I'd never met her. We'd been at the same event. I actually found this picture where Heather and I are in the same picture, but I'd never met her, so that's a very odd thing. And that's kind of who I went into this thinking I was gonna have the most in common with. And I think you see that at Lisa's event. I'm sitting on the same side of the table with them.
Yeah.
I was not by choice, that's where my seating card was, that Lisa made sure I was sitting next to her. But you really see me agreeing with them, nodding along. I mean, my hair was agreeing, like I was team, whatever it was they were saying. And over time, I've gotten to know Angie and Mary and Whitney and just fallen in love with the three of them. And I've gotten to know a little bit more about Lisa that I love but maybe don't like, and we got to figure that out. And I think everyone will be pleasantly surprised where Heather and I end up.
Yeah.
Unless I'm surprised by where Heather and I end up. You never know.
That's the thing,
Salt
you
Lake
don't know
City
what you haven't
Housewives is a
seen.
roller coaster, so who knows whatever happens.
The reunion's gonna come up. It's gonna be one of your first ones. We know it feels like it's like a Super Bowl for you guys, but what are your big questions? Again, we've kind of touched on these things. There's of course the Lisa of it all and Heather, but what are kind of the big answers that you're looking for in terms of your past season and your standing in the group?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty clear where I stand with everybody today, and I think I'm pretty clear how we got to where we are today. But I'm uncomfortable with where we are. I'd like to be much closer with Heather. I'd really like to have resolution with Lisa. And I vacillate. There's a part of me that just wants to be like, it's all okay. This was our first season doing this together. Let's just like kumbaya and move on. But I also know myself, and that's not gonna work long term. We're gonna have some apologies. We're gonna have to have some accountability from me and from others. And I'm prepared to do whatever it is I need to do to fix a friendship. I think people don't always like to hear me say, what do you need me to say? But I mean that genuinely. What do you need in a friendship from me that I can provide for you to fix maybe where we've been or to get to know me? I'm gonna show up the reunion day. I mean, really turned out. I have a couple of great outfits I'm deciding between. I have good at glam. I mean, I love to be shady, and I could be real shady, and I have all kinds of like, if you've seen the after show, it's hard for me to stop a rant once I start one.
The after show's where it's at.
I gotta tucker myself out before I like end the, jokes. But I wanna show up as my best self that day and my best friend, the best friend I can be. And I think that's leading with accountability and an open apology. To my friends on the show, if you're listening, you need to show up with some accountability and apologies also. We are gonna meet halfway. Well, I'll come 60% of the way, but they're gonna come 40.